Okay, so the moment you've all been waiting for. We're now going to take everything we've learned about factoring and solving polynomial equations, and we're going to apply them to word problems. Okay, so before we get started, something we need to talk about. Sometimes the solution of an equation may not satisfy some of the conditions of the problem. Okay, and we've come into stuff like that before when we had contradictory facts or things like that, but this is a little bit different. Um, for example, a negative number cannot represent a length or an age. You reject solutions of an equation that do not make sense for the problem. Now remember, with a quadratic equation, we're going to get two solutions. So one of them may not work. Both of them might. If we have a cubic equation, we're going to have three solutions. Again, one or two of them may not work, okay? So you can't just throw down your answers. You have to look at it and say, okay, which one of these answers makes the most sense? So let's start with example 1. A decorator plans to place a rug in a 9-meter by 12-meter room so that a strip of flooring around the rug will remain uncovered. How wide will the strip be if the area of the rug is to be half the area of the room? Okay, so let's get started by figuring out what's the area of the room. Well, if the room is 9 by 12, the area of the room is equal to 108 square meters. Okay, so half of that is going to be 54. So we're looking for a rug that has an area of 54 square meters. So let's draw a picture. Here's my room, and it's 9 by 12. Here's my rug, and the strip, we're going to say the strip is 8 or X on each side. So the dimensions of the rug are going to be 9 minus 2x, okay, because I have x here that I'm subtracting on each side, times 12 minus 2x. Okay, so that's going to be the dimensions of my rug. So I can set that equal to, that can be set equal to 54. Okay, so the area of the rug is half the area of the room. The area of the room is 108. Half of that is 54. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to multiply these out so that I can incorporate my 54 so that I can then rewrite it in standard form and then factor it. So 9 times 12 is 108. This would be negative 18x and negative 24x. So 24 and 18 is 42. So minus 42x. And then negative 2x times negative 2x is positive 4x squared. That's equal to 54. I'm going to rearrange this. 4x squared minus 42x plus 108. I'm going to subtract 54 from both sides. So I end up with 4x squared minus 42x plus 54 equals 0. I'm now going to factor this. I could factor out a 2, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go ahead and do slide divide bottoms up. So I have x squared minus 42x. 4 times 54 is 216. That's equal to 0. I'm then going to do my x box. I need to add two numbers and get negative 42 and multiply two numbers and get 216. 216 is positive, which means that these two numbers are going to be negative. So two numbers that will multiply to give me 216 that'll add up to negative 42. So 216, let's see, if I divide that by 4, that's 4 and 54, not quite. 2 plus 1 is 3. So I can divide this by 3. I get 72. I can also divide it by 9. So I get 9 and 24. And I can also divide it by 6. And I get 6 and 36. And 6 and 36 will give me 42. Okay, so it's good if you know your divisibility rules. So double check. Negative 6 and negative 36 gives me negative 42. Negative 6 times negative 36 gives me positive 216. So that is correct. So let's write this out. X minus 6 and x minus 36 equals 0. I now have to do my divide, and I'm dividing by 4. And I'm going to simplify this. So let's simplify this one first. That was simplified to 3 over 2. And then I would do my bottoms up, and it would look like that. This one is just going to be x minus 9 equals 0. So here I have it, 2x minus 3 times x minus 9 is equal to 0. Okay, so I said each one of these equal to 0. So 2x minus 3 equals 0, 2x equals 3, x is equal to 3 halves. Since I'm talking about meters, I'm going to write that as 1.5, okay, which is legitimate. It doesn't have to be a whole number. Here I have x is equal to 9. So my choices are x could be 1.5 meters or x could be 9 meters. They're both positive, but let's look at the 9. If this whole side is 9, then there's no way that these increments could also be 9. So this one we're going to reject, and we're going to say that x is equal to 1.5 meters. Now, did we answer the question? How wide will the strip be if the area of the rug is to be half the area of the room? That is the answer to the question. It will be 1.5 meters. Okay. They may have asked for dimensions, but they didn't. So 1.5 meters. All right, so let's look at example 2. These are fun. All right, an arrow, oh, I love these. An arrow is shot upward with an initial speed of 34 3/10 meters per second. When will it be a height of 49 meters? Okay, so here's a formula that they give us. The height is equal to the rate times the time minus 4.9 t squared. This whole thing has to do with gravity, okay? Gravity is an acceleration, okay? It just happens to be pulling you. So as you go up, you're slowing and slowing and slowing. Eventually you get to 0, and then you start falling. And as you fall, you go faster and faster and faster. Okay, so let's draw a picture. So here we have our arrow. And our arrow, the trajectory of our arrow goes something like this. Okay, and here is time is equal to 0. They're asking us what time it'll be at height 49. So we'll say here's 49. And we're looking for this time right there. Okay, so we're going to plug in the information that we know. So we have h is equal to rt minus 4.9 t squared. So we're solving for t. So let's plug in. Our height is 49. The rate is 34.3 t minus 4.9 t squared. Okay, so obviously we're going to move everything over. So I have 4.9 t squared minus 34.3 t plus 49 equals 0. Okay, now 4.9 will go into 49. Let's see if it'll go into 34.3. So 34.3 divided by 4.9, look at that, it's 7. So we're going to factor out this 4.9. And we've got t squared minus 7t plus 7 equals 0. That's not right. Plus 10. Duh. Okay, so then I just need to factor this. So that's going to be something like this, hopefully. So two numbers that I can multiply to get 10 that will add up to negative 7, and that's going to be negative 2 and negative 5. I multiply them together, I get positive 7. I add them, I get negative 7. So that tells me that t is equal to 2 and t is equal to 5. So how do we choose? Well, let's look at this. Look at our arrow. When it comes up here, it hits 49 meters right there. But then it starts to fall and it hits 49 meters there as well. So this must be the 2-second mark, and this must be the 5-second mark. So it will be at 49 meters 2 different times. So it will be at 49 meters at 2 seconds. And again, I can't even write, at 5 seconds. So this is a case where both of them are correct. Okay, now we have a consecutive integer problem, which we love. So find two consecutive negative odd integers. All right, so we're looking for solutions that are negative odd integers whose product is 255. Now, we haven't really talked about negative consecutive numbers, but we set it up the same way. If I have, the first one is n, the second one is going to be n plus 2, okay, because it's just the next one that's odd, so we add 2. So their product, so we have n times n plus 2 is equal to 255. Now that makes sense, because if this is negative and this is negative, they're going to multiply to give me a positive. What I need to do is multiply this and then incorporate the 255 so I can write it in standard form. So I have n squared plus 2n equals 255. N squared plus 2n minus 255 equals 0. So now it's in standard form. I'm going to do X box. I want to add and get 2. I want to multiply and get negative 255. So what I'm looking for is a positive and negative number whose difference is 2. So let's, here's a trick. Divide the number in half. So if I divide this in half, I get 127.5. So let's take, I didn't want to do that. Let's take the square root of it. And I don't have a square root button. So I'm going to say 50 times 50 is 2,500. That's too many. 25 times 25, that's 625. That's way too many. 15 times 15. So we're looking at something closer to 15. So if I do 15 times 17, there it is. So 15 and 17, it's going to go like this. That's when you have big numbers like this and you're looking for things like this, just use your calculator and play around with things, okay, until you get something that works. So double check. Negative 15 and positive 17 is positive 2. If I multiply 15 times 17, I get 255. So that one's correct. So I have n minus 15 and n plus 17 equals 0. So n minus 15 equals 0, so n would equal positive 15, and n plus 17 equals 0, so n would equal negative 17. Now remember we said we're looking for a negative odd integer. Well, they're both odd, but only this one is negative. So the two numbers would be negative 17, and if I add 2, if I go 2 to the right on the number line, the next number is going to be negative 15. Now, you'll find when you have problems like this, and it's not just consecutive numbers, it can be other things too. You'll get one answer that doesn't work, but its opposite may be a solution. Okay, it's kind of not really a coincidence, but you'll see that every once in a while. Okay, example 4. The length of a rectangle is 6 centimeters more than 3 times its width. The area of the rectangle is 144 square centimeters. Find the dimensions. So this is a rectangle. There it is. The length is 6 centimeters more than 3 times its width. So if this is W, this is 3W plus 6. Okay, 6 centimeters more than 3 times its width. And they give us the area. So this is problems that we've done before. We just couldn't go anywhere with it. So the area is the width times the length. And we know that's equal to 144. So we are going to multiply this out, incorporate the 144, and write it in standard form. So I have 3W squared plus 6W minus 144 equals 0. Let's see, is 144 divisible by 3? Yes, it is. I'm going to factor out that 3. W squared plus 2W minus 48 equals 0. So now I can factor this. I'm looking for two numbers that I can add to get 2, that I can multiply to get negative 48. It tells me one of them is positive, one of them is negative, and they have a difference of 2. Well, it's going to be 6 and 8, because 6 times 8 is 48, and they have a difference of 2. Since the 2 is positive, I'm going to make my 8 positive and my 6 negative, and then I'm going to double check. Negative 6 and positive 8 gives me positive 2, which is what I have here. Negative 6 times 8 is negative 48. Okay, so I have W minus 6 and W plus 8. Okay, we know that 3 is not equal to 0. Okay, so we don't even worry about that. W minus 6 could be 0, and W plus 8 could be 0. So W could be positive 6 or W could be negative 8. Well, we can't have a length of negative 8. So this is one of those situations we were talking about. So the width has to be 6. They want the dimensions. So the dimensions are going to be 6 centimeters by 3 times 6 is 18. 18 plus 6 is 24. It's 24 centimeters. And if we double check, 6 times 24 gives us 144. All right, last one, try this. Originally, the dimensions of a rectangle were 20 centimeters by 23 centimeters. When both dimensions were decreased by the same amount, the area of the rectangle decreased by 120 square centimeters. Find the dimensions of the new rectangle. So here's my rectangle, my original, and it was 20 by 23. I then cut off part of it, and they were both decreased by the same amount, which means this side is now 20 minus x, and this side is 23 minus x. Okay. So when both dimensions were decreased by the same amount, the area of the rectangle decreased by 100. So this is the area that decreased. That's 120 right there. Find the dimensions of the new rectangle. So it's going to be the big minus the small is equal to 120. So the big is 20 times 23. The small is 20 minus x times 23 minus x, and that's equal to the difference, which is 120. Okay, so we're going to multiply everything out, incorporate everything together, and rewrite it in standard form. So 20 times 23 is 460 minus, and I'm going to put this in brackets and multiply it out first, and then I'm going to distribute my negative. So this is going to be 460 minus 20 minus 23, so that's minus 43x plus x squared equals 120. So 460 minus 460 plus 43x minus x squared equals 120. The 460s cancel out. I have 43x minus x squared equals 120. I'm going to move everything to the other side. So I'm going to have 0 equals x squared minus 43x plus 120. And I'm allowed to do that. I'm going to factor it on this side. So now I factor. And what I'm looking for is two numbers that will add to negative 43. Negative 43 that will multiply to give me 120. And since this is positive and this is negative, these need to be negative. So two numbers that I can multiply to get 120 that if I add will give me 43. And let's see. Factors of 120 would be like 2 and 63 and 40. All right, so 3 and 40. If I add those together, it gives me negative 43. If I multiply them together, it gives me positive 120. So I have x minus 3 and x minus 40. So x minus 3 would equal 0, so x would equal positive 3. And x minus 40 would equal 0, so x would equal positive 40. Okay, again, if this side is 20, I cannot decrease it by 40, so we eliminate that one. And so we have x is equal to 3. And they say find the dimensions of the new rectangle. Well, it was 20 minus x, so 20 minus 3 is 17, and it was 23 minus x, so 23 minus 3 is 20, so it's 17 centimeters by 20 centimeters. Fun, fun, fun.